Shalom, shalom, shalom. Barakah Shabbat. It's a blessed Shabbat for us today as we start a series on restoration of true worship. The message could not have come at a more suitable time than these days that we're living in. The scriptures are very clear that at the end of time, it is of necessity that there is a battle between true worship and false worship. And worship is central in the salvation of mankind. True worship is the thing that is going to separate the goats from the sheep. True worship, as it gets revealed and as it gets to be done, exposes that which is not true. So for anyone to be able to say, come out of Babylon, they can only do that as they are settled into true worship. Because without being settled into true worship, there is no way someone is able to identify what is Babylon. Without settling into true worship, you cannot distinguish religion from the truth of Yahweh. You can't distinguish paganism from the truth of Yahweh. You can't distinguish the belief systems of this world from the true belief that Yahweh gave to his own people. So it is incumbent upon anyone who seeks after truth, to look for that which is truth. Because when we find the truth, then we can start to walk in the same path of salvation that Yah has created for us. For today, as an introduction, we are going to first read Hazon chapter 14. Hazon is in Revelation. Hazon chapter 14, I will first read verse 6 and 7 from the scriptures. I'll be using the scriptures most of the time, and also I will use the old tone KJV where it explains better. And I've got also my Besora here on my phone, which I also would love to refer to, because it's much for me it's much easier than the two that I have hard copies. So these are the tools that we will be using in our study, in our series as we go forward. Revelation 14 verse 6 and 7, it says, "And I saw another messenger flying in the mid-heaven, holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and the tribe and tongue and people." So let's get it right. This message has no geographical bounds. This message is not limited to any languages. This message is not limited to any type of people. It's a worldwide message that must go to the whole earth so that everyone may know. It doesn't say they have to turn and become righteous, or they have to accept Yahweh. It says, saying with a loud voice, "Fear Elohim and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made the heaven and the earth." It doesn't say worship them. It says worship him who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountains of water. So the message, the message of the first messenger here in Revelation chapter 14 is taking a people back to worship him. Why do we worship him? because he is the creator of heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water. So he commands worship because he created us. He commands worship because he was there before everything, anything that came to be ever came into existence. So because of that, he deserves our worship, he deserves our honor, he deserves our obedience. Period. So, right from the beginning, we need to put this everlasting good news to the four corners of the earth. It is a task that anyone who has received this message must also publish it to the four corners of the earth, to the ends of the earth, so that people may know who is to be worshipped, fear Elohim, and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come. Now, when you have done that, when the first messenger had done that, then followed another messenger saying, Babel is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image, and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the set-apart messengers and before the Lamb. And the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those worshipping the beast and his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name, then verse 12 says, here is the endurance or the patience of the set-apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yahusha. So, the second messenger and the third messenger cannot come and be of any effect or be fulfilled on this earth until the first messenger has been preached, if you like, has been shared throughout the whole earth. And then when that has happened, when the truth has happened about worship, remember the truth is the truth about worship. That's what we are going to be delving into. True worship versus false worship, right? So today we will cover just some of the aspects. Now when it comes to worship, what we want to look at who is worshipped, who deserves worship. We've already seen from this verse that it says, fear Elohim, the creator of heaven and earth. Him alone is to be worshipped. I mean, we are going to see scripture says, hear, O Yahshua, Yahweh, your Elohim is one, Yahweh. You know, how do we understand these statements? We don't need to theologize that. We don't need to interpret that. Those are clear-cut instructions coming from Yahweh. Now, when we know who is supposed to worship, the next thing that we want to know is his revealed nature, his character, because we must identify the person. If you know the character and don't know the person, it's a half-baked knowledge. You must know the entity that is supposed to be worshipped, and you must understand him. You must know his character. You must know his wants and the things that he doesn't want. You must know him as the creator of heaven and earth. Now, when we know that, then we need to know how do we worship him. Now, the aspect of how do we worship him, we look at when do we worship him, right? It's very important because as far as time is concerned in worship, it's pivotal. Outside his times that he has decreed and you choose to worship him any other times, then you are in disobedience to the will of the one that needs to be worshipped. So when it comes to worship, brethren, you don't dictate anything. You don't determine anything. You don't put anything on the table. When it comes to worship, you obey the one who is to be worshipped. You don't have your own days of worship. You don't have your own deities that you worship. When it comes to worship, you don't choose your own seasons of worship. You have to obey him who is supposed to be worshipped and go according to his dictates, according to his instructions, according to his teachings, according to the way he wants to be worshipped. Let's get that clear right from the beginning. So whenever we are going to worship the Elohim of the scriptures, whenever we are going to worship the Elohim of the scriptures, the guide must be the scriptures. The guide cannot be man's tradition. The guide cannot be what I think or what I prefer. The guide must be consistently be the scriptures itself, because that is the instruction of how he wants to be worshipped. That's the principle which we must get right from the word God. So whatever is going to come forward in these discussions, it must be based upon scripture. Now let me share with you something. Yahweh himself speaking in Numbers chapter 12. Let me look for Numbers chapter 12 from the, I would love to read it from, it comes out clearer there than from the other books. So we read from Numbers chapter 12. I think I want a verse from verse 6, and we go up to, let's see. Let me get the verse, the chapter first, and then we can see how far we can go with this. This is a commendation by Yah himself. He's speaking to us, giving us a guideline of how we should worship him. This has been my guide myself. When I approach to scriptures, I cannot be guided by anything else other than what Yah himself has put to be my guide. Now when you read from Numbers chapter 12 verse 6, it says there, and he, that is Elohim, said, oh, okay, let's start from so that we can get context. Let's start from verse 1 so that we may get context. Yeah, we may get context and then we understand what is going on here, so that when we see what is going on, then we may be able to appreciate the commendations being given by Yahweh. Yeah. So now Miriam and Aharon, that's Numbers chapter 12 verse 1, spoke against Masha. Masha is the one that the English call Moses. We prefer to give them their original names as close as we can find out. Because let me be upfront with you now. The language of the ancient Hebrews, no one has got it now. So we are trying to go back to that language, and we try, and through whatever studies that we are doing, we are not claiming that we are perfect, but as we go forward, like anything else that Yahweh himself had to spell out, we still expect him to come and give us that language. Because listen to this. I just want to digress a little bit about the language issue. We read Zephaniah chapter 3. Just please take note, I'm going back to the source of instruction that is in Numbers. But before I do that, let me just get the book of Zephaniah chapter 3. read from verse 8 there. Zephaniah chapter 3 says, "Therefore, wait for me, declares Yahweh, until the day I rise up for plunder. For my judgment is to gather nations, to assemble reigns or kingdoms, to pour out on them my rage, all my burning wrath. For by the fire of my jealousy, all the earth shall be consumed." That is key. That is key. The context, according to this verse, is clearly showing us or taking us to a time when Yahweh shall judge the whole earth. That has not yet come. So we are looking at this into the future. So at that time, take note, at that time, these events are taking place. For then, when? At that time, when he shall be pouring out his consuming fire. For then I shall turn unto the peoples a clean lip or a clean tongue. What is the reason for doing that? So that they all call on the name of Yahweh to save him with one shoulder or with one consent. Okay, what does KJV say here? Let me just read what KJV says says about that passage. Zephaniah chapter 3. Right. It says there, "Therefore wait ye upon me, says Yahweh, until the day I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour out upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." So it's clear to in mind that this, in context, Yahweh is going to gather. It's a time of judgment that is taking place here. For then, at that time, will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of Yahweh to save him with one consent. So the issue here, brethren, the issue is that this language does not come to us by our mere study. No. Yahweh has done it before when he moved his people to speak in languages that erstwhile did not know. Right? Remember the Shavuot in the book of Acts at the Pentecost there. The Talmud, the disciples of Yahusha, they spoke in languages spoken then in the world, right? And they proclaimed the Besora, the good news, to the world. These languages, they did not know them. These languages were spiritual languages, implying that Yahweh himself, who is spirit, gave them the utterance. So the source of the language was the spirit, was Yahweh himself, who is spirit. Those that worship Yahweh Elohim must worship him in ruach, in spirit and in truth. So when we do that, then he starts to give us these gifts. So this language, the pure language, I am persuaded to accept that that language is the language of the scriptures. And the language of the scriptures is the Hebrew language, the ancient Hebrew. Some might prefer to call it Paleo-Hebrew. That is the language which he inspired our father Abraham, and he spoke this language through his servants. And we have the scriptures originally that were written in that language, or given instructions in that language, which we don't have now, which we are showing our interest to have by digging everywhere where we can to find out that language, how it works, the dynamics of that language. And I can say to you now, from my own study and from my own research, I am finding a lot of those words of the ancient Hebrew language. They are scattered in the tribes of the Bantu people, from the Cape up to Sierra Leone. You find a lot of those names. Though, of course, when you listen to them today, they've been anglicized heavily. And the pronunciation that they give of those names or letters or words in the scriptures, it doesn't come correctly as it should be. But when you pronounce them, those words, from the Bantu languages that we have, and the meaning they have in Bantu language, and the meaning that they have in the Hebrew, you will see that the meanings are exactly the same. Exactly. I'll give you an example of the one that they call Abraham. Abraham in the Bantu Shona would be Abarahama. Right? What that means is one who has given birth to nations that are relatives. It means exactly that. You don't change anything. Bara, which is the first word of the Hebrew scriptures, is a Shona word which means to create or to give birth. In the intimate meaning of the word in the Shona Bantu language, Bara means to give birth. So we still have a lot of these words in the ancient Hebrew that still exist. It's not just these few that I'm giving you. There is a lot. I made it my task to actually dig out and find out what these words are in the Bantu languages that I've known and that I've asked others to give me meanings. And I'm finding it's a lot of these words from the ancient Hebrew that you will find in our languages today, that exist today with the same pronunciation and the same meaning. Like the English Bible will say the Guni people or the Guni tribes. But we know that these people that are called Guni by English, they're actually Nguni. So we don't go by the pronunciation of the English, but we rather go by the pronunciation of us as a people, the Bantu people. And then we find the true pronunciation that still exists in our midst. So just a short digression there. Let me go back. So if we want to worship Yahweh in spirit and in truth, that is found only in the Torah. Numbers chapter 12, we were reading from verse 1. Now there was a disagreement here, and Yahweh spoke to Masha saying, chapter 12, I'm reading chapter 13. Chapter 12. Now Miriam and Aharon spoke against Masha because of the Cushite woman. The Cushite woman. This woman was a descendant of Cush. That's what it means there. And Cush is a descendant of Ham. Right? Ham is the father or the progenitor of the Cushites. Ham is the one that gave birth to all those people that you read about in the scriptures. Ham gave birth to Mizraim, which the Western world call Egypt. There was nothing called Egypt. His name is Mizraim. Mizraim was the cousin of the Philistines. So if you like, the Philistines and the Mizraim, the Egyptians, are one and the same people. And you come to Canaan. Canaan, the one who received the curse. Canaan is the one that received the curse because of disobedience. And remember, let me just be upfront here. The curse was not given to Canaan because he was black. No. He was already born black, just like the rest of the others. The curse was given to him because of the disobedience of his father, Ham. So the curse went to Canaan. Canaan is a descendant of Ham. So are all the tribes that you read about in the land of Canaan. You read about today, Lower Kush, where we have countries like Ethiopia. So that whole belt, Mizraim, Ethiopia, going up to Iraq, belonged to the Hamites. The people that are mentioned mostly in the scriptures in Bereshit chapter 10 and 11 are all Hamites. And the Shemites dwelt amongst the Hamites. And these people, they were always the same. They always looked alike. So that's another subject. Now here, Masha has married a Cushite woman. And we know these people, we know their characteristics, we know them, that they always bicker about each other, about the tribes. Which tribe do you come from, and which language are you speaking? All these things. This bickering was always there, and it is still there today. And they were complaining about their brother's wife, the Cushite woman. And they said, "Is Elohim spoken only through Masha? Is he not also spoken through us?" And Yahweh heard it. And the man Masha was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. And suddenly, Yahweh said to Masha and Aaron and Miriam, "You three, come out to the tent of appointment, or the tent of meeting." So the three came out, and Yahweh came down in the column of cloud, and he stood in the door of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both went forward. I mean, look at the picture. The Creator has got to come down, right? Shrouded in the cloud. Scripture says, "No one sees Yahweh and shall live," right? And this must be very important, because the last time that we read about him coming to people was in the Garden of Eden, where you would come and commune with our parents. But here is an issue that is arisen between Masha and his brethren. And Yahweh himself has come down to solve this issue. Listen to this. Listen very, very carefully. Wherever Yahweh speaks, we are supposed to pay attention like we've never paid attention at all. The words of Yah are the chiefest of them all in the scriptures. But unfortunately, men today decide to have nothing to do with the words of Yahweh, and they want to do everything, anything of their own choices. And specifically, I'm talking about the 10 commandments which Yah himself spoke with his own mouth, and he wrote with his own fingers. And these are the very words that are of no regard to humanity. So I don't do that. I ask for favor to be able to listen to those words and pay much attention and be enabled to live according to those words. Now, I want to take you through Numbers chapter 12. Let's continue. Here he has come, he says, and he said, "Hear now my words. If your prophet is of Yahweh, I make myself known to him in a vision and speak to him in a dream." Did you hear that? As for prophets, Yahweh speaks to them in visions or in dreams. Right? Now, this is very, 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 very important. I speak to them in visions or in dreams. Then the next sentence says, "Not so with my servant Masha," or Moshe, or some want to call him Moses. "He is entrusted with all my house." What is the house of Yahweh? Is it not his worship? Eh? We've just been talking right now that at first the house was a tent, right? After that, Solomon built a tabernacle, right? Which was seen, it was destroyed, and another one was built, right? And when that one was destroyed, Yahusha says of himself, right? He says he is now the source. He is the source of everything. That temple where they were worshipping ceases to exist. And in the book of Revelation, we come across this chapter that says there is no temple. There is no temple anymore. But Yahweh himself dwells in his people. And Shaul says, we are the temple of Yahweh. We are the temple of the Spirit. So we see the progression, just as what the elder was discussing earlier on, that this temple will progress until we get to the stage whereby Yah desires to dwell in us, in you and in me, right? Thus making you and me the dwelling place of Yahweh. Now, when that happens, then that means our minds become pure, right? Because the mind is the interface where the spirit and the body, the flesh, influence. So it is up to our choices as we make them daily, right? We have to make choices daily so that we either go along the flesh or we go along the spirit. The spirit being Yahweh himself. So Yah says, when it comes to prophets, I speak to them, right, in a dream or in riddles. He does not speak to them mouth to mouth, face to face, as he does with Masha. Now, verse 7 says, I speak to him in a dream. Not so with my servant Masha. He is trustworthy over all my house. Listen to this. It says, verse 8 says, I speak with him mouth to mouth and plainly, not in riddles. And he sees the form of Yahweh. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Masha? If you cannot get the commendation here being given of Masha, I don't know what you can get. You look at the prophets in the scriptures. Surely they speak in riddles. Listen to Daniel. I saw beasts, I saw that, I saw this and that, right? And those prophecies, they take a lot to understand. You have to read line upon line. You have to take a scripture there. You've got to look into history to see if these prophecies were fulfilled and to see who fulfilled the prophecies. You know, when it comes to prophecy, that's why Shaul says, we prophesy, but in part. But when it comes to Masha has got the instructions direct from the mouth of Yahweh. He has got the instructions that must guide us to true worship, which Yahweh requires of us. Let's get on from there. Let's take a break. We are ended at Numbers, and we will come and see this source that Yahweh is given is the source of true and righteous instructions which we are supposed to follow.